Hey guys, in this video I'm taking you through an entire maintenance detail on the interior, and I'm showing you guys how I focus on very specific areas to add a ton of value without necessarily putting in a ton more time. And I'm also doing this without any expensive tools whatsoever. Alright guys, as always, as you look at the before of this vehicle, I want to give you guys a little bit of context with this situation. There's going to be two major things that we're talking about in this video. One is very product related, and the other is on the business side. So the product we're really going to be highlighting here, and this is not sponsored or anything like that, it's just a really fantastic tool that I got a hold of from Tom over at Buff Bright Products, who they actually put out some of the lights that you put onto your polishers, some of those swirl finder lights. But he came out, and I think the patent's pending on it, he came out with a tool that you attach to the end of your vacuum, your kind of a chisel tool, but it's got basically rubber teeth on it, and because there's some extreme pet hair on these carpets, as you guys can see, it ended up being a perfect time to kind of implement this tool and just to see how it works. The second main thing we're going to be talking about is the business side of this, and I want to break that down real fast before we get into it. This is a maintenance detail that I'm doing here, but you can see that the isolated variable here that is very different than in other maintenance details is the pet hair. And so what I want to talk about here is how to identify and why it actually creates such a profitable instance here to identify one particular part of the vehicle or one particular part of this job that is going to take basically 80% of the effort, 80% of the time, 80% of the product. And when you can do that, you actually set yourself up to create an awesome win-win for you and your customer, and I want to explain why. Now, the other great thing here, as I said, is I'm not really using any serious tools or anything that's expensive, and so this is a great scenario where it's just a very real life. Here's how you can detail a vehicle extremely simply, extremely profitably, with barely any product and barely any tools. I think the only real tool I'm using here is actually a vacuum and the tip on the nozzle that I just explained. But just so you guys know, as you're watching throughout, I'm using Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner. Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner on all of the hard rubber, vinyl, plastic, and leathers. And then I'm going to be using the obvious vacuum, the tip that we're going to be looking at, some general purpose microfiber towels, some regular detailing brushes, and actually a new detailing brush that I'll hook up below as well. That's kind of toothbrush-esque, and I'll hook up a link so you guys can check that out as well. I think it's like $2. And I'm using a bunch of different dusting brushes. But the beautiful thing about this is that because this is a very new vehicle, and again, the isolated variable here that's going to take more time is the pet hair, every other part of the car is extremely clean, which segues into my business portion here that I want to highlight why this creates such a great win-win. I am going to be spending virtually no time and no product on every other part of the car except for the carpets. So you guys can see I am barely using any of the Meguiar's all-purpose cleaner, and I'm just agitating it here and there in isolated instances when I need to get into certain cracks and crevices with my detailing brushes. I knew that walking into this, and so my conversation with the customer here goes something like this. When the customer calls in this situation, to them, they're thinking that this is going to take a ton of time, a ton of product, and a ton of effort because the only thing they can really focus on in their head is the pet hair. And all they can see is pet hair everywhere. And because, of course, they don't understand the nature of detailing and what, all the other parts of the car include and what I can and can't do and how to cut to the chase and all that sort of stuff, they're thinking, man, this is going to be really expensive. And this is how this conversation actually went. This is going to be really expensive, time consuming, and I'm just going to have to bite the bullet here. Well, once again, the beauty of this is after a lot of experience and of course years of detailing, as you guys can probably relate, you begin to be able to see parts of the car. And by the way, I always have customers text me pictures before I ever put them on any sort of schedule. And so when I see pictures of a car like this, it becomes really obvious, not to mention, of course, the make, model, and year gives me a big clue in here, the fact that it's a 2020. But when I see pictures of the rest of the car, I can clearly see the leather is in perfect condition. All of the vinyl, rubber, hard plastics are in perfect condition. Dash, door panels, all of that sort of stuff. Perfect condition, barely even dusty. And so in my mind, what am I thinking? Well, all of my effort is going to be spent on the pet hair here. The rest of this car is going to go very smoothly, very easily, very simply. And so it's going to be very easy to set up a win-win for my customer here because I'm going to be able to do it in a price range that works perfectly for them because I already know it's going to be far cheaper than what I can tell she's expecting over the phone. And number two, it's going to be not a time suck. I'm not going to have to keep the car for 6 hours. It's going to be fairly in and out and be a pretty simple process. So I want to give you guys just a little example of what a conversation like this goes like, and I'll just speak for myself here in response to my customer. So customer A, number one, thank you so much for calling. What I hear you saying, and from the pictures I can tell as well, it seems like the pet hair is really what you are concerned about mostly. Is that right? And I always ask them questions like that just to make sure that they understand that I hear what they're saying, number one, and number two, that I'm on the same page. And I want to make sure that I am hearing them right, because I promise you, in a lot of ways, you might think you know what they're talking about, and unless you rephrase it and say, hey, this is what I heard, is this right? You might make a mistake that becomes kind of costly. But I say, it seems like that you are most concerned about the pet hair. Is that right? Yes, of course, that is what I'm most concerned about. Okay, fantastic. Well, the good news here is that because your vehicle's in such fantastic condition, really it's not going to be a huge time waster. I'm not going to have to spend a ton of time on the other parts of the car, which is good for both you and I, because that way we don't have to spend time on things that don't need time to be spent on them. We don't have to waste money in those areas. But we also get to the area that you're most concerned about. And what's really great about this is because your car is in such good condition and it's so new, after I finish all of the cleaning, particularly the pet hair and the carpeting, I'm going to go ahead and put sort of a waterproofing chemical product, basically protect your carpets as well as they can be, because this is a new car and because I want it to stay in such good condition. And that's really not going to cost you anything extra. It's a fairly simple process. It's not going to take a ton of product. You're just positioned really well with this type of car and with this new car for something like this. Now, that being said, this is going to be around a 2.5 hour job. And the reason why I'm saying around is just because with pet hair and with what we call in the detailing world the impossible carpeting, quote unquote, which is probably what you're going to find in like the trunk of your car, maybe underneath the removable floor mats. It's not your traditional type of carpeting. It's more like felt. And when you have things like pet hair, dirt, crumbs, all that stuff stuck in that particular type of fabric, it's actually very difficult to get out. Not that it can't happen, it just takes a little bit more time than you think it would. And so while 2.5 hours is what I think it's going to be around, we might have to give or take 30 to 45 minutes. And for that reason, I always like to give myself a range, a sort of safety net with pricing. And so while a minimum price is going to be $100 for a job like this, just looking at the minimum time this might take and the effort, of course, that it's going to take to produce the kind of results that I know you're after, I always like to give myself about a $40 wiggle room with a job like this. So we're going to be looking at between $1 and $140. Is that a price range that works for you? Assuming that it's on the lesser end, that would be fantastic, but I'm not going to know until I get in there. So I just want to confirm that whether it's closer to 140 or closer to 100, you're comfortable with that. Does all of that make sense? Now, I know I just said a lot there, but basically what happens in a conversation like this, and I can tell you that this happened with the customer here, is you're building this huge level of trust with them because, number one, you're basically letting them know, hey, I hear what you're saying, and I'm not going to over-exaggerate or under-exaggerate any of this. I'm just going to tell you exactly what I hear you saying, exactly what I see, and exactly what this is going to take. I see the results you're after. I've talked to enough customers at this point to be able to kind of interpret, what results do you really want? What are you really trying to say with what you're saying? But secondly, you're coming off as an expert. When you can communicate well and articulate things like that to a customer, in many ways, I tell guys, customers don't know what they want. They need you to tell them what they want. They don't know what it takes to get the pet hair up. They don't know what it takes to get this kind of job done, but you know what it takes. And so when you can articulate that very simply in a very straightforward way, they instantly trust you. It's pretty much as simple as that, really. You'll notice that also in situations like this, I am always looking for the small little additions that you can make because, once again, because I know this job is really going to be fairly simple, I want to look for small things that I can add in to say, hey, I'm going to also do this. Unless I told you about it, unless I make it clear that I did this, you're not going to know that I did this. So by the way, because your car is in such great condition and it's so new and you're bringing it to me, I just want to give you a little value add here. I'm going to go ahead and put a serious protection on your carpets. It's going to basically waterproof your carpets, so any spills, it's going to protect against dirt, but even any liquid spills, you're going to be able to mop those up pretty instantaneously. I want your car carpets to be able to stay in this good condition. I don't always get to see totally new cars like this, so here's what I'm going to do for you. That, once again, instantly breaks down a sort of barrier because in many ways, you need to think about it like a consumer. the person who's coming to you they're not the expert, and so they're kind of at the mercy of you being the expert. For example, like in real estate, when you get the home inspector to come take care of the home inspection before you buy the house, you're kind of at the mercy of them doing their job well because you're not a home inspector, and so they're going to charge you $300 to get that done, to get the termites, the mold, radon, all that sort of stuff done that you need to get done. But you're not an expert in any of those things. And so they could say, hey, you've got a huge mold problem and it's going to cost X amount of dollars to fix. And once again, you're at the mercy of trusting that what they're saying is legitimate because you are not a mold expert. So I don't know what it takes to finish that. And so in many ways, when you communicate in a way to a customer like I just described in this little scenario, you're basically just stepping down to their level is how I see it. You're kind of coming off of the mountain, off of the detailer mountain, talking in regular, plain English to the customer where they say, okay, I completely understand what you just said. It was concise. I didn't have to think about it a ton. I don't have to interpret anything you're saying. And that totally makes sense. And while I didn't know what I should expect to pay, that actually seems very reasonable. And then on top of that, you're adding on these small little things that don't take a ton of time, don't take a ton of energy, and don't eat into your profit margin that allow you to add more of what they call, value stacking to your customer. So they say, man, not only did he do this, this, and this, but I called him and he actually threw this in when I didn't even know I needed this. How fantastic is that? So once again, I know I'm kind of talking very simply, but these are kind of the things that will set you apart very quickly in the detailing world. And this is essentially what builds that word of mouth reputation that I talk about that ends up really exponentially growing your business. Now guys, before we go any further, if you like the information that you're getting here and it's insightful for your detailing business, go down and hit the like button because the more likes we can get on videos like this, the more this video will get pushed out to other people who potentially need this information. And this is totally free information. You don't pay anything to use YouTube. And so all I ask is that you smash that like button to help this video rank in the YouTube algorithm so that other guys who just need the help can get it, really. It's pretty simple. Now, just to say this another way and a much more simple and short way, make sure that as you are taking on jobs like this, you are always looking at and isolating the places that require your focus and taking your focus away from the areas that do not require it. That way, and this again seems very simple, but that is what I'm talking about doing here. If the pet hair is the biggest issue here and the rest of the car is virtually in perfect condition, then I'm able to create these sort of creative packages that end up creating really big win-wins. And where detailers end up really going wrong is, I call it the detailing ego. There is a certain ego surrounding detailing and in the industry that probably is only heightened by social media, but detailers have a certain ego of like, well, when you call me, I'm going to detail every single area of the car completely perfectly, even if it's a totally new car. And it's like, while I understand the sentiment, that is not helping you or your customer, and it's certainly not increasing profitability. And so I would just say it's okay to sacrifice your detailing ego on the altar of good business sense. And that might be something to consider as you guys are building things. Now we're about to get into the vacuuming part here, and so I do want to break this product down just a bit because I think it's actually a great product or a great tool, and you guys might be interested in it. I'm not an affiliate. I don't get paid for any of this stuff, so sometimes people get skeptical and cynical, but nonetheless, I do show you guys the products that I like without any financial gain, okay? So this is a product, once again, it was designed by Tom at Buff Bright, and so I'll hook up the link to the product, but you guys can see it's basically this little silicone kind of rubber-esque tip that you put onto the tip of the chisel or the crevice tool here. I call it chisel tool, crevice tool. And it fits over my 4-gallon shop vac. There's a specific adapter that I use for the 4-gallon rigid, I call it shop vac. I know shop vac is a different company, but that's just kind of the general name for that kind of vacuum. The rigid vacuum that I'm using, the 4-gallon, has a specific sized hose. There's adapters that will fit this tool to it. And it's basically just this rubber end to the crevice tool that underneath there, you guys can't see it right this second, but underneath there, it's basically like a bunch of little rubber or silicone teeth. And you can see how effective this is even on the impossible carpeting. That's what really blew my mind here, is it just made my world so much easier. Just quite frankly, it just sped up the vacuuming process very, very efficiently. And so this is a product I'd absolutely suggest you guys check out if you're dealing with a lot of pet hair. Pet hair can be super difficult, and there's probably 1,001 little sort of what would you call, like, mom and pop conventional wisdom ways, little tricks of the trade to get around pet hair, diluting fabric softener and using a pumice stone and that kind of thing. But this was an extremely, extremely effective tool, and probably the most effective tool I've used that attaches to a vacuum. And once again, you can't really argue with the results. And so while, of course, it's easier to vacuum the carpet that's on the removable floor mats, it's a bit more like traditional carpeting. You can see, and we'll move to the trunk here, you can see how effective it was on the Impossible carpeting. So it was just really, really awesome. Now, that being said, guys, after I'm done with the vacuuming, I am going to be basically just finishing the car with a couple different products. Number one, I'm going to use Technician's Choice Detail Spray to finish the hard areas of the inner part of the car, as well as all those like clear-coated areas that sit around kind of like the transmission, the radio buttons, all that sort of stuff. And then I'm going to be using a product from Renegade. It is their leather conditioner, basically. And it comes in this liquid kind of paste bottle. You guys are going to see it. It's a fantastic, fantastic product. Use it several times now. And it's kind of my go-to ultra leather protection. I like to use those kind of thicker pastes with leathers that are newer and that are nicer. I do think they give a bit longer term, more durable longevity protection. So that being said, guys, that's all. I'll let you guys enjoy the rest of the video. Go ahead and smash that like button if this was helpful, and stick around till the end of the video because we are going to be wrapping things up with just a couple more things. thank you for watching. Sorry about the rain. It started pouring down on me as I was just doing the windows. So unfortunately, you can probably hear that thunder. Unfortunately, I did not get any good lighting for the after, but that'll have to do. Guys, if you want to check out any of the products or the tools that I used in this video, then just check out the YouTube description box below. I hook up links to everything that I use, no matter what it is. So check those out if you want to buy any of that. And of course, if you're new to the Wilson Auto Detailing channel and you haven't yet subscribed, but you like videos like this and you love all things detailing, then hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you get notified when I post any future videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, from Luke here at Wilson Auto Detailing, keep working hard, and I'll see you guys in the next video.